So now I'm happy to announce our panel. Come on up, friends. This panel is going to cover new age data storytelling with generative AI in media and advertising. So we have our panelists, Shi, Director of Data Science at TripleLift. We have Luca Fiaschi, Chief Data and AI Officer at Mistplay. Suri Chen, Principal Data Scientist at PepsiCo. And we're going to have Ganes Kesari, Founder and Chief Decision Scientist at Innovation Titan. He is going to be moderating the panel for us. Let's hear it for our panel. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Sam. Okay, welcome back. This is a nice lunch. Is it good? Yep. Okay, welcome back. It was a good session and great wrap. I enjoyed it. So we'll get started with a quick round of introduction of the panelists, and then we'll set the context for the topic, which is generative AI and data storytelling. Start with me. I'm Ganesh Kesari, a data science advisor, entrepreneur, and adjunct professor. I co-founded two organizations, Gramner, a 250-member data science company, and Innovation Titan, a thought leadership firm. They basically help organizations and leaders get business value from their AI data investments through data advisory workshops, corporate training. I love teaching, writing. I teach business analytics at NJIT's Business School as an adjunct professor, and I write for Forbes. Now I'll introduce the panelists here. So we have Shi. So she's the Director of Data Science at TripleLift, a data-driven professional in the ad tech industry. She leverages a strong background in mathematics to uncover valuable insights to optimize advertising bidding strategies. Before ad tech, she worked in the media research industry, focused on linear TV viewership measurement. She's a seasonal marathon runner, triathlete, and part-time musician with a pop rock band in the city. Welcome, Shi. Then we have Luca, who's the Chief Data and AI Officer at Mistplay. He has an extensive career in data science leadership, including VP roles at Stitch Fix and HelloFresh. With a PhD in computer vision and a track record of large-scale machine learning applications, Luca combines deep technical expertise with strategic oversight. His achievements include leading large cross-functional organizations, managing big technology investments, and delivering high-impact ML products in consumer experiences. He also serves as the advisor at PyMC Labs and contributes to development of Bayesian models. We heard a lot about them in the morning session. And then we have, so welcome Luca. And then we have Suri Chen, who's a principal data scientist at PepsiCo e-commerce. She addresses complex business problems across sales, marketing, and supply chain. Her enthusiasm lies in transforming machine learning concepts into robust, results-oriented products for PepsiCo's objectives. Armed with a master's in operations research and a background as a trained pianist, she relishes exploring the intriguing crossroads of AI and music in her spare time. So that is an impressive panel. Great backgrounds, not just in data science, but also in fine arts. And they're going to be sharing a lot about their the passionate projects, and talking about generating music, for instance, using AI. So we'll hear more about that. So coming to the topic, a few months ago, there was an innovative cosmetics company that launched a very bold advertising campaign. This caught everyone by surprise. What did they do? They launched a new campaign using generative AI. They created a new face for the brand. It was not just another static digital model, but they used generative AI to create a face called Alva that was a combination of millions of data points drawn from customers globally, their features, preferences. And this AI not just was used in advertisements, but also interacted with the customers through the website and advised customers and with recommendations. Right? So what was the result of this? The campaign was a groundbreaking success with over 40% increase in customer engagement, 25% sales uplift, and more than that, it increased the brand mentions across social media platforms by over 60%. So the company concluded that it was not just selling, the AI was not just helping sell cosmetics, but it was telling a compelling story. So that is the potential of generative AI. And by the way, this introduction was generated by ChatGPT. So I got curious and asked the model, wow, this sounds interesting, can you give me the references? And then it apologized. It said, this actually is a fictional story I made up to make your talk more interesting. So, and so this is also the risk of generative AI. Right? So it has potential, there are big challenges as well. So in the talk today, we'll talk about both. We'll talk about real world applications, and we'll also talk about the ethical and other big challenges that we face. And we have our panelists to enlighten us. I look forward to learning as much as you. So now we'll talk about a couple of themes, and each theme we'll pass questions to the panelists, and at the end we have time for audience questions, so please keep your questions handy. You'll get your chance to ask the panelists as well. We'll start by tackling the big question in our minds right away. Is generative AI more hype, or is it for real? So first question for Shi. We have been hearing, and ChatGPT clearly has taken the world by storm. Do you think this is all hype, or where is the element of truth in this, Shi?
Yeah, sure. The reality is the future is here. So generative AI is already changing the game today in advertising, for example, ad content creation. So making an ad takes a lot of effort. Start with doing the market research to find your target audience. You have to choose the platform you want to deliver the message, and also decide on the budget. And also you have to hire a creative team to put things together. If it's a video content, you probably need to hire a model, videographers, rent a studio to shoot the video, right? So it takes a lot of effort and costs a lot of money. But with generative AI, everything is different. You don't have to hire someone to do the market research for you. AI can do that job and find your target audience. And also, you don't need model, videographer, or studio anymore. Everything can happen and be made on your laptop. So given this, the production cost can be significantly reduced. So that's the game changer in here. And also, as generated by AI is already in our life, with or without your awareness, I can share a very quick example. So can the tech support put on the picture of 4 of us with the headshot? You guys probably already see that on internet. Yeah. So I can tell you that one of the headshot of the 4 of us is a fake image. Can you guess which one is fake? Exactly, mine is fake. So the short story is the organizer, one of the amazing hosts, Esther, reached out to me for a headshot, but I was traveling at the time. I didn't have a good headshot at hand. So I can choose either to spend half a day, find a studio or CVS, get a headshot, spend $50, or I can ask the help for AI. So I reached out to one of my buddies. He's a designer, and I gave him 10 of my real pictures, and in return, he gave me back 100, and I picked the best out of the 100, and here we go. So be careful. The thing you're seeing might not be real.
No, you almost seem to be putting most of us out of our jobs.
Yeah. Oh, and also, I promise this is the only fake information I provided for today's panel. Everything else is real. Yeah.
Okay. Let's hear the view in terms of where this could be more hype, because I often hear about every product and solution being labeled AI, and we've been hearing that for a number of years now. Now everything is being labeled generative AI. So where is the hype in all of this, and what should we watch out for, Luca?
Well, I would say like every technology, as everybody knows here, goes through phases, right? So there is a phase where there is a lot of enthusiasm for the technology, and then people start realizing that there are limitations. Now, some of these limitations may be lifted because of the technology goes on, while some others may just remain there. And if you think about the first example that you made is an example of a limitation of this technology, which is factual accuracy and the fact that often this technology comes up with what's called hallucinations. So things that are just made up. And although it can make some job categories actually, or some tasks that you need to complete very, very cheap, like creating an image where the human can then select which image you would like to have and then put it on a screen. Like, we are still far away for brands to really trust entirely generative AI created content and put it out there in a wild. And that's one of the limitations of these technologies, that it needs to be fact-checked by humans to make sure that even just your brand is safe when you release these images. Now, the other thing that I find interesting is there is interesting maybe limitation that's inherent to some of these business models that are going to spawn out of generative AI, that it's not yet super well understood, but some people start thinking about that. So if you are circa 2010, 2000s, you wanted to build a business, you didn't have to worry too much about your computing power and technology, because you would hope that those would actually be amortized by the fact that you actually achieve a certain scale. It was almost like a semi-fixed cost. Now, all these business models built on generative AI, they are extremely computationally intensive, and that means that your ratio between the value that you produce with your business and your cost, it's actually pretty close to each other. And so the question is, in the longer term, how many of these businesses are going to be super profitable? And how much competitive moat do they have, even if their own competitive moat is an algorithm that's open source and everybody can replicate? So I think that's actually interesting questions that we will need to address in the next, from a business perspective, in the next few years, while we see these businesses growing up on top of this technology.
Okay, yep. Thanks, Luca. And based on what you mentioned, like, we are still in the early days, right? I heard an interesting quote from someone, I saw this on the internet, that generative AI today is almost like an over-enthusiastic assistant trying really hard to please us. And for that objective can even lie to us today, right? Just to please us. So it's clearly a long way to go, but looks like there is promise, but we'll have to be watchful as well. So Suri, can you help our audience tell the difference? And it's always useful to have some tips on how you can detect the fake from the real one.
Yeah, I think it's a really good question to think about. And before we jump into generative AI, I think when we're facing any kind of technology revolution or innovations, we just need to ask ourselves one fundamental question. What exactly the product or technology is trying to solve? What kind of problem is trying to solve, right? So if you cannot explain to one product or technology in a way that you can understand, or in a way you can imagine one day you are going to use this tool, it's most likely to be a hype, or it's not really going to be a real thing. But on the other side, right, on the other extreme, if there's a product claiming themselves, I'm going to solve everything under the sun, it's most likely to be a red flag, because I don't believe there's a one-size-fits-all kind of solution. Real solutions should address specific problems. And for generative AI specifically, I think we really need to understand it is not magic, right? It is built on top of a data model and engineering around it, no matter it's a prompt engineering or software engineering. So if you are working with or having some introduction of a new generative AI tool, I think you need to take a closer look at the data you use, how they collect data, It's going to introduce some bias. It's going to help the model to learn something you want it to learn, or they claim that they can do, right? And you can look at the model itself. Does it even helping you answer your questions? And if you use a model, is it going to keep learning and keep twinning itself? Or if you're going to deploy it, it is going to compatible with your current system, right? So all of this consideration, the more you closer to technology, the better or easier for you to discern the reality from the hype. And I think lastly, as you said, we are in really early stage. So everything that claims itself speedy replacement of current workflow is not going to work, because every kind of good product takes time to develop, and those development involve a lot of human process as well, like domain experts. It's going to solve your problem. It's need to know your problem better. So I think if you are saying everything saying this thing is going to be replace human labor, it's not going to work. So from the engineer and the scientist perspective, I think the best way to know is just ask for a trial. Just use it and just play around with it and see where the value is and what kind of consideration you might take in the future when using it.
Great points. Take it for a test run, and you'll figure out whether it really can scale or not. Let's talk about some real-world applications in your areas you've come across. I know this space is still, we're still experimenting. Many organizations are thinking about it. But let's talk about either in your organization or in the industry, examples you've come across. We'll start with She. From advertising platforms and in your area of expertise, where do you see generative AI enhancing the storytelling and communication of information from data?
Yeah, sure. So one thing I want to talk about is the hyper-targeting, or you can also call it like a personalized targeting. What it does is the model can figure out what I find like attention-grabbing and what you find attention-grabbing, and use that insight to generate different messages to send to you and I to elicit a response. So one of the very successful story came out last year was the company PepsiCo partnered with Vanguard. Anyone know PepsiCo, the name? It's a AI-powered marketing platform focusing on using very persuasive and emotionally engaging language for marketing campaigns. So yeah, PepsiCo and Vanguard, they partnered together. Vanguard is one of the major and leading financial investment management company. They partnered together to improve Vanguard's marketing efficiency. So what PepsiCo does is they dive into the consumer data, learn about the consumer behavior, gather the information, and map the emotional and the linguistic characters together, and use that to generate personalized information or sentences in Vanguard's product email content. So with this collaboration, Vanguard actually improved their conversion rate by 15%, which is very, very significant. I have no doubt that more successful stories like this will come up shortly in the coming future.
Okay, yeah. This reminds me of also though not generative AI, the example we saw earlier in the day with Penguin Random House in terms of generating the book and images. Yeah, so thanks for that. Luca, can you share examples from gamification and customer loyalty?
Yeah, for sure. So I work in a company that's a loyalty platform for gamers, and for us, hyper-personalization is really, really important. And right now we are integrating these type of technologies in two ways. First is to come up with really personalized messages and push-up notifications that we show to our users. Instead of having, to just fully template them, we can make them a little bit more snarky and a little bit more funny by adding AI to these, fairly standard CRM messages that we expose our users to. And the other one is we actually can build, and we are experimenting with building entire experiences of gamification based on these AI models. One of the concepts that we are developing is game riddles. So the way that Mistplay works is that you get a list of games that you can install yourself on your mobile device. And what we come up with is a system that, based on the history of games you played before, based on what's available to you, it's going to come up with a riddle, which is going to ask you, what's this game? And please install it to win some loyalty points. And if you solve the riddle, and you can actually burn some of your points to get hints about that, you're going to win the prize. And we launched it as a prototype internally in our in-house version of the application. People got really crazy about it, so they're actually playing it a lot. So we'll see whether these concepts develops into something that we can actually launch externally in the next few months. But that is an example of applied gamifications that we are already thinking about. I think, by the way, all these concepts, the way that we develop them, they just came out of hackathons, because the technology is so new that it's actually very, very difficult to predict how you want to integrate it in your business model. And then there is the question of, should you build or should you buy this technology externally? Because a lot of companies are going to come out of this. So what we did, very simply, is let's do a hackathon. So we took all our data and engineering teams, we put them together for 2 days, and we let them play. And they came up with these interesting concepts like this one.
Okay, that's fascinating in terms of how you are coming up with the ideas like hackathons. And so maybe a follow-on there. So can you talk about other avenues for discovering such ideas?
So there is of course, like, I think ideas always come from, first of all, from observing the market and and keeping a trends in the market and see what comes out and other companies are doing. Actually, often observing what your competitors are doing, it's always a good way of testing new technologies. But I think when the technologies are so new, that's like almost it's super difficult to find or to to predict where the technology is going to go. Like literally create a safe environment for your teams to play with them. And there was actually, in organizing this hackathon, there was a lot of internal work that needed to be done because our legal team was a little bit concerned. Are you exposing our internal data to the ChatGPT APIs? Do you get the contract in place? And so on and so forth. But removing those concerns and going with a culture of experimentations that allows people to try out new concepts quickly, it's the best thing you can do, actually.
Thanks, yeah. Sounds powerful. Suri, I was fascinated to hear about your personal music project with neural networks, and it's crazy that you started 5 years ago. Can you talk more about it?
Yeah, I feel it's ages ago, consider how fast the area developed, right? So I did this project 5 years ago when I was in Columbia. And I was taking the deep learning course, and my professor, Ali Horza, was a brilliant researcher and full of imagination. And he proposed, let's do a music generation model in a course. And as you know, I have been trained as a professional pianist since I was young. So I was like, okay, if I don't do it, who's going to do it? So I started to work on this interesting problems, and it just dragged me into the rabbit hole, searching all the generative AI. And back to the 5 years ago, 2018, Transformer just released about a year ago, back to that time. So there's a lot of application and profound research in natural language processing domain. Not many in music generation area. And back then I was thinking, I don't think any business applications on this model, right? Everyone use text, who's going to use music? So when I was doing the project, I found this model released by Google Magenta, which is a research group under Google brand. They focus on a lot of content generation, like text or music, audio, and then released this model called Music Transformer, basically based on Transformer, but they change it into the music content. And that is my model architecture as well. And the result was pretty interesting. I wouldn't say impressive, but it works. It totally works. And the idea of training the music is very different than NLP or image, because if you think about music, it can be any format. We can use music score, which is more like text, kind of a sequential data set. Like you can tokenize it into different notes. But we also have a sound wave. We have spectrogram. They are more like in between of image and token. So there are many, many ways to generate or train your music model, and which bring it to many, many different researchers using different architecture exploring this area. And now we are in 2023. There are a lot of licensed software doing great job in this space. And I think I will stop talking about my project because I will talk about it for 5 days. But I really wanted to give you my top 3 recommendation or my favorite products, music generation. So the first one is called Jackbox, which is open source model from OpenAI. The great thing about the Jackbox is because it's open source, you could see the model architecture, you could play around with it, and it generates the music from the audios based on the lyric you provide. So it gives you, if you provide a lyric, you setting up your tone, you will have a raw audio output as your as a material you receive. And the second model is called IVA. It is coming from a research group based in Luxembourg. They never open sourced about their architecture, but they are generating score-based music. So the best part about it is you could transform it into some notes or MIDI file, and you could download it. You could actually play it in your instrument, in your piano, in your guitar. So it's a great tool if you wanted to be a composer instead of player, performers. And the third one is called Ampere Music. It is a highly popular product within content creator because it enables you to license it after you generate some music. And the way it generates is based on, they call it descriptor. You basically set up what kind of genre, what kind of feeling, and you put some description, and then you will have a piece of music based on your setup or lens. And you could directly license it with a $5, $90, like different type of licensing. So it's a great tool for some YouTuber who wanted to create their background music, but they don't want to buy music. I think it's a great, I think it's an area that we haven't paid too much attention to, but a lot of potential. Yeah.
No, your passion really shows the way you explained it. But people who weren't aware of AI-generated music with the recent news with the Drake AI song, how many of you had heard about that news? It was pulled down, the music was pulled down within, I think, a day of it going live. It generated a lot of attention and created a big controversy. So the copyright around AI-generated music is still unclear. So that's also the other part which is a good segue to get into the third part of our conversation, which is risks and challenges with AI, and we'll try and wrap up with that. So can you talk about the ethical implications of for advertising platforms when they use generative AI?
Sure, I can think a lot of aspects that we can probably discuss later. So one of the major one is like a misleading information and manipulation. So with the power of generative AI, it can create very persuasive, realistic information on the internet. And that could lead to the concern of malicious use on the content. They can create fake news or fake ads that cause a lot of harm to the customers, right? Another big one is privacy and data usage. The generative AI model requires a large amount of data in training. That could include a lot of user data. And the advertising platform has to ensure that the data collection, the storage, and the data usage has to comply with the legal guidance and user consent. And a lot of things like information bias, for example, in general, the model is trained with existing data and generating new content, right? And existing content could have some inherited biases, and also the content could have some copyrighted content or trademark that violate a lot of potential. I'm sure that Luca and Suri can talk more about the bias and the copyright part.
Yep. Thanks. Thanks, Shi. Luca, can you touch upon the bias aspect? And AI generally, we've seen that it propagates bias. And for the last many years, we've been talking about it. With generative AI, I think the risk is even bigger. And also point in case, when you're talking about the internal game that the teams were playing, and you said it was almost addictive, right? Earlier, if with simple technology, if people were addicted to social media platforms, with generative AI, it sounds even more scary. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I think it is important when you bring this product to markets as a company that you really think about your guidelines to make this technology safe, which could be, for example, for us, we're thinking about stuff which is very simple at the moment, as all the content that's generated through AI that hasn't been reviewed by a human, it's going to be properly labeled as this was generated by AI, so by AI assistant. So this is a way of actually doing that. Or you can have meta model on top of it that allows you to detect where your content becomes inappropriate. Now, funny enough, this is often actually, it is an actual problem. So there is, I was reading the news like a few days ago of a case of somebody that built a girlfriend bot and unfortunately left it out in the wild. Very soon this became like very like sending very inappropriate messages to the audience, and this is of course not okay. So definitely there is like the development of an AI policy that allows your teams to develop this product in a safe manner and to have your legal team as a partner in the development. It's really, really important. Now, like legal teams across the world also need to catch up often because it's a new technology that's very technical, and lawyers typically don't have that type of background to understand these technologies. And that's where it reconnects with the hype meets reality like type of problem. So there is one big concern, for example, we have today around generating AI, using AI for generating code, is around AIs that was trained using GPL licensed code. Now, many of you know that GPL is an infectious license, so if you replicate a part of GPL code, then you would have to transfer your license, the GPL license in your code base. And therefore, companies do not want that because they don't want to like open source the entire code base. Now, the reality, though, is that the probability of that to happen, it's very, very small, and those tools are not yet there to like actually being able to generate very large portion of code base. The part of code base you can generate, it's actually pretty small and pretty simplistic. So here what I'm saying is even the risk at the moment are a little bit hyped and a little bit theoretical, some of the risks compared to the reality we are actually facing where this technology are today. But they will evolve.
Yeah, I think everyone talks about the need for regulation, just that I think within the industry we have not figured out what those regulations are and how they can be more meaningful. Yeah, we'll have to figure out. Talking about AI and adoption, right? So when we talk about the challenges for AI adoption over the last 5-6 years, typically we talked about the need to educate users and the challenge coming in from the target audience. Whereas with generative AI, the resistance first is coming in from the legal teams in terms of even can they implement those solutions. So Suri, can you talk about the copyright and the legal implications for AI-generated content, even beyond music, and what are your views on that?
Yes, I think there are two ways, right? So one is when you are generating something with AI tool. So currently, as we say, like the regulations and lawyers, they need to catch up. So there's no proper regulation and proper law to protect or to say how we should use it. So when a content creator, they are generating something new from AI tool, currently it is not protected by copyright, right? So it's highly possible that you are, some like seasoned artist, and you wanted to experiment different tool, and you actually create something awesome, but you are not under protected. It's possible somebody just take it and just use it. Right, so this is something for the content creator. They need to put on their consideration, like ongoing using this tool. But on another hand, right, from the brand or from the consumer or from other users' perspective, because the tool is so accessible by everyone, it's going to bring a lot of misinformation in the market, right? You are going to have more fake news. You're going to have a lot of fake image, campaign, and promotion. That's highly possible. And it will bring a lot of confusion to consumer and probably hurts the brand and corporate reputations. So in this part, I wouldn't say we cannot do anything right now, but as Luca said, this part it will evolve, right? They will have more framework to guide how we should properly use it in the long term. And I think there's another also aspect from the corporate perspective, right? When you are trying to implement some generative AI tool, you need to be really mindful because company need to be really transparent on what their decisions. When user facing this kind of tool, they sometimes will be really skeptical, and they will feel really deceived when you realize, hey, the campaign I'm watching for 5 seconds are actually generated by AI, but not humans. So I think we need to be really mindful for using all this new technology and thinking some possible negative impact or collecting enough feedback from user or from customers to understand how their experience with all of this tool.
Thanks, Suri. Now let's open the floor to the audience for questions. Any questions you have? If you have for a particular panel member, you can address it to them, or you can leave it broadly to the panel as well. Any questions?